topic that our guest today, Laura, and I have been talking about for at least the last 6 months about cracking the code of marketing performance, talking about quantifying and boost your team's contribution to revenue. So before we get started, I wanted to make sure everyone was able to get it in on the phone or the GoToWebinar. Definitely works best if you're on your speakers, but if you have any problem listening in, feel free to use the numbers on your screen there with the access code and you'll be ready to go. Also, we're going to be live tweeting this event and sharing our story, but also asking you to enter your questions through social media. So feel free to use the hashtag MPM, which stands for Marketing Performance Management. Our Twitter handle is at Allocadia. Laura is, I'll introduce her in a second, is at Laura VEM, which for Vision Edge Marketing. And mine is jthomas_44. So really looking forward to engaging you there as well. All right, so let's roll into this. Really excited to have Laura join us today. Laura, the CEO of Vision Edge Marketing. Laura is one of the most passionate people I've met in terms of looking at marketing's contribution to revenue, talking about measurement, analytics, and performance. She's worked with dozens of companies in different areas, companies like Rackspace, LexisNexis, Adobe, etc. And writes a great blog where I first met Laura, has been articles and done a lot of surveys on how to look at marketing performance. So welcome, Laura. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone. I'm so delighted to be here. Thank you, Allocadia, James, and Brittany, for this opportunity. I'm really excited to talk about what we've learned over the last 15 years about what best-in-class marketers are doing better and differently. So with that, James, I'll turn it to you and we'll get started.
Yeah, excellent. So yeah, I'm James Thomas. I'm the CMO of Allocadia. Definitely this event came together as a result of a very similar shared interest that both Laura and I have been looking at for the last little while, talking about what high-performing teams do differently than the rest of the pack. So Laura's done some great research, and rather than talk about theoretical, I think we have some really great data we're going to show today that from a lot of Laura's research on the 3 types of marketers on your team and how to motivate them, how to build a high-performance team of A players. And then I'm going to jump in talking about how to invest in marketing to achieve better performance and results. So just a reminder, we're going to take questions through social media, but also using the chat panel from GoToWebinar. So hopefully people have used GoToWebinar. There is a question section there that you can ask your questions, and I'll jump in as they're relevant throughout the session. We'll also leave time at the end for questions. If you have any technical difficulties, Brittany is following along here, so brittany.wong@allocadia.com. She can help you out. And again, the GoToWebinar has lots of ways to interact with us. So let's jump into it. So I'm going to and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Laura. And Laura, I'm going to give you control here and give you access to jump in. So over to you, Laura.
Thank you. So this is a really an important and exciting topic that we're going to talk about, and it's not an easy thing to do. So I just want to remind us all that it's not an easy thing to do, but I want you to think about, imagine for a moment, just imagine what it would be like if we could crack the code on marketing performance. What that would mean is that we would have a set of very measurable performance standards. It would also mean that we could truly show the relationship between marketing and business results. And this is really critical. We can measure so many things in marketing today, but actually having the connective tissue between our activities and our investments and the actual outcomes, that's more challenging for many marketers. And imagine if marketing was actually perceived as an investment instead of an expense, and we were really operating as centers of excellence inside the organization. So I want to take us on a journey that would enable all marketers, every marketer, regardless of your industry, regardless of your size, whether you're B2B or B2C, regardless of where you're located in the world, to be able to achieve this kind of aspiration. The challenge is, and what we have learned, is that it really is a big problem for most marketers to really show that they are here inside an organization. all of us in marketing are here to create business value. So we've been doing research for the last 13 years, and the last 3 years we've been had the privilege of ITSMA being a partner of ours. And so what we've learned recently is that most marketers really are challenged to create business value. They don't do a very good job of being able to use data to improve business performance. Talking about big data, you can hardly have a day go by where big data isn't somewhere in, whether it's being tweeted or in some other headline in marketing. And so, yeah, even though we're being inundated and deluged with data, we're having a hard time really using this data in a way that will help us improve our performance. And the other challenge we're having with data is being able to create insights and make predictions with it. So most marketers are not able to do that very well. On a scale of 1 to 10, somewhere about 5.3, 5.4, which is not a very high score. One of the other things that we know is that the pressure is intensifying in terms of being able to prove our value and our contribution. So in last year's study, or this year's study, 2014, we're still in 2014, the nearly 400 folks who participated in this study, 85% of them said the pressure is actually increasing on marketing for our ability to measure our value and our contribution to the business. So what do we know? We know that some marketers, a very few number of marketers, are actually able to do this fairly well. And so we asked members of the C-suite, how well can your marketing, what grade would you give your marketers for their ability to prove their value, their contribution, their impact? And only about 26 of the marketers receive an A from their C-suite, a score of 90 to 100. The majority of marketers are getting, B's and C's, and we have a very low percentage of marketers who are failing at that. And what's interesting is, okay, how can we characterize these marketers? So we have data for the last 13 years, and as a result of that, we've been able to identify sort of 3 primary categories of marketers and personas of those categories. And those 3 groups, so if you think about the laggards, their persona is really campaign producers. These folks are exceptional at acting as an internal agency to the organization. So they're very good at tracking marketing activity and maybe even some outputs, but they're all about implementation, pretty much at the activity level. And so most everything they look at is from the perspective of activities. These guys are excellent what we call service stations. When someone pulls in and asks to get their gas tank filled up or their windows cleaned or their oil checked, those service stations that can turn on a dime and serve well and quickly, very efficiently. These campaign producers can be the same when they're asked to add content to the website, run a social media campaign, put together an email program, produce an event. The next group, those middle of the pack marketers, about 40% of them, these folks can be characterized as sales enablers. They see the sales organization as their primary customer, and they have really become proficient at what is traditional marketing automation, campaign automation capabilities. They're all about using opportunity scoring, pipeline work. They speak in the language of the pipeline, a lot of demand generation, lead language, all around really improving and managing marketing performance from a pipeline perspective. The A's, though, these best-in-class marketers, their persona really is business value creators, and they're all about business outcomes. And we'll talk about this a little bit more, but what they really are business people first and marketers second. They're business people who happen to be running the business of marketing. And so that's a really different way that they look at the world and what they perceive as their job to be and how they interact with both their leadership team and their colleagues, including their partnership with the sales organization. So those are the 3: campaign producers, sales enablers, business value creators. And so as we look at those that group of A's, let's try to understand why we would go to the effort, because this is huge effort to become an A. What's in it? Well, there's some things that we have learned are really interesting about the business value of these A's. Look at their ability to actually acquire net new customers. We're working with a company today, and we have another customer. Both are very global customers. One's a European-based company, another here is North America, in the top, category leaders for their markets. And their marketing organizations, one of their biggest dictates by the leadership team is to add net new customers. Well, if you look at the A's, you can see that they are better at actually acquiring these net new customers, statistically better at doing it than their counterparts. They're also able to actually expand the amount of business they're doing with existing customers and better. And they're able to retain customers better, and also lastly, they get a higher rate of referrals from existing customers. So these are really important things to businesses, and they can be monetized. All four of these things can be monetized, financially monetized, so we can see the value and talk about how marketing is directly impacting them and how marketing can measure its contribution to each of these four. And so if you want to understand why it's worth the effort, here's four reasons that it's worth the effort. A couple of other things that we've noticed that are statistically significant about this group from a business perspective is revenue growth. So again, value creators far exceed their colleagues in the other two groups when it comes to revenue growth. Also, the dollar value of the sales pipeline, again, value creators head and shoulders, and their win rates are significantly better. So they have much higher win rates compared to their colleagues as sales enablers or campaign producers. So here are all the good reasons why it's worth making the effort to become a value creator, even though it's hard work. So what separates these value creators from the rest of the pack? There's really three things. The first one we've briefly talked about, and we'll go into a little bit more detail, but they're business people first, and that's how they approach what they're doing, and they're really marketers second. They're business people in the role of marketing. They've made marketing performance management a priority, and they have crafted a set of quantifiable performance targets and have produced a multi-level marketing dashboard that helps them know what isn't working, can see how they're actually moving the needles, that facilitates their ability to make a strategic market, customer, and investment and product decisions. So let's take a quick look. So this group regularly engages in two-way dialogue with their business leaders. I wanted to kind of show you who they're talking with. So it's not about talking to themselves as much as it's about talking with the leadership team and talking with the finance team. Yeah, we can see that they do a little bit better, and it's kind of surprising in connecting. I think the sales enablers would be head and shoulders above that, but they're actually not. The sales enablers do a very good job of actually talking with other parts of the marketing organization. And you can see where the campaign producers are just lagging in every one of these categories of who they're engaging in conversation with. So there's some really important things here about that conversation that's taking place and what that conversation entails. So the most important thing about the conversation that the A's are having, these value creators are having, is that their conversation is really about what are the business outcomes? How is success going to be, what does success look like? How is success for the organization, for the company going to be measured? How will you know that marketing has made an impact to those outcomes? And what kinds of measures would be meaningful to you? They're asking those kinds of questions. Again, statistically significant differences between the A's, the value creators, the middle of the pack, and the campaign producers, particularly in this kind of dialogue. So if you're wondering, one thing you can start doing right away is, especially as we are on the verge of the calendar year 2015, a lot of folks are in marketing planning mode. We're starting to see a tremendous number of marketing plans in our organization already. How are those questions? Is that dialogue taking place? So have that conversation. Don't be afraid to have that conversation. Having that conversation will begin to let the leadership team know that you're thinking about those kinds of questions as opposed to what trade shows you're going to go to next year, which is, again, kind of a common thing that the campaign producers are thinking more about. The second thing is about making marketing performance management a real priority. So for the value creators, again, statistically significant. It's so important to them. They actually have a roadmap. They have it in their budget. They've got people allocated to it. They've got infrastructure around it. So marketing performance measurement and management, measuring particularly, not just about the data, but the actual getting clarity around the metrics, what that looks like. These folks have um, clarity around the relationship of their metrics, a hierarchy of their metrics, which things are related to what, and we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly, and then how and they're going to measure it and how they're going to report on it. So we've really been able to identify 6 best practices of the best in class. These are alignment, accountability, analytics, automation, alliances, and assessment. And I'm going to just quickly talk about each. Alignment is the most important one. So these are the 6 arrows in the marketing quiver, and alignment is the first place to start. Because that, and if you think about those questions that the value creators are engaging in, they're really about alignment. And so alignment is, you have alignment if you can see direct line of sight between marketing activities and investments and business outcomes. And if you can't do that, and one of the best ways to know whether or not you can do that is if you can see it in your marketing plan. If you can't do that and you don't have it and you can't see it in your marketing plan, that's the very beginning place for you to go right now. So start there. The second is accountability, which is around measurement and reporting. So these folks have done a very good job of understanding the right metrics. Again, they sort of have an understanding of the metrics hierarchy. They know what things need to be on the dashboard. That dashboard and the marketing plan are very tightly related and linked. They have a metrics catalog. They have used those metrics. They set performance targets around them, and then they're measuring their actual performance to their targets and reporting on them in a dashboard. And that dashboard is probably something more than just something they click as a report out of their CRM or marketing automation system. The third thing is analytics. So this is around, again, analytical muscle, being able to derive insights from data. This is about the kind of data they are collecting, because again, there's so much data today, it's easy to get overwhelmed, and it's about their ability to produce models. Automation is really the overall infrastructure. So this isn't just about technology, but it's about the processes, the systems, the talent. Oftentimes this is, all of this stuff gets encompassed underneath marketing operations for many of these organizations, as the lead is where it's all housed, and marketing operations is far more than just, again, the campaign automation tool or maybe the planning or budgeting function. So it's really much more holistic. It's what enables the CMO and the VP of marketing to run marketing like a business. These folks have forged very explicit, clear partnerships with sales, finance, and IT. There's lots and lots of conversation about that going on right now. But they have very explicit relationships that specify how they're going to interact with each other and how they're going to serve and support each other. Notice it's each other, it's a partnership. And lastly, these folks are relentless in their pursuit of continuous improvement. They're constantly up Periscope, auditing what they're doing, benchmarking what they're doing. They may have marketing leadership councils to help with continuous improvement, and it's all with the idea of aspiring to be a marketing center of excellence. Okay, so here's the question. Do you have a plan for continually improving performance management? Because these folks do. You can see value creators, again, statistically, much more around having a well-defined, documented plan that's going to help them improve their performance, measure their impact, and it exists even in their budget. They have someone tasked for the work, and oftentimes, again, inside marketing operations. They are really thinking about this in a proactive fashion, and they're leading the way, they're leading the charge. It's not like they're waiting and being told that they need to do it. They know that they need to do it, and they're taking the lead. I've lost my ability to move forward one. There we go. Thank you. Okay, number 3. Whoops.
Oops. Get it. There you go,
Help me,
Laura.
JT. Thank you. Okay, so
I'll get it back for you. Hold on. You keep
thank
going.
you. Okay,
There you
let's
go.
talk about dashboards, because I know one of the key things that Allocadia can talk about and bring to the table is some of the things they can look at and help you, particularly in understanding the investment side of your performance. And if we're doing this well as a value creator, we are really doing outcome-based kinds of budgeting, and we are doing outcome-based kinds of dashboards. So it's really not about the activity of marketing, it's about the results of marketing. And so their marketing dashboards are really reporting on their impact. Almost every marketing or function today, you can see, has a marketing dashboard, certainly some kind of report. At least, the campaign producers are lagging, obviously, a little bit behind that. Most of their reports are more like status reports. Most of the sales enablers are using the reporting function inside their marketing automation or CRM systems. The value creators are moving well beyond that into the kinds of dashboards that they're creating. So you can see that that's going to be important. JT, can you push? Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about what they have on their dashboards. So as we all know, Peter Drucker once said, effectiveness before efficiency. And it's very easy to become a hamster on the wheel and try to become more and more efficient. But the real thing we need to do first is determine how effective we are. And so the dashboards, the purpose of a good dashboard is to communicate our contribution, demonstrate our value, enable us to make course adjustments, facilitate strategic decisions, allocate our resources better. So if we need to, move both people as well as money. So all of those things are what we're trying to do with the dashboard. And so if you look again at what the value creators are doing, and please note the, again, statistical significance here, the value creators are really about tracking the performance of core marketing strategies and processes. It's not just, again, did we get something done? Did we get it on time? Did we get it done in budget? And did we produce some kind of output from it? They're really looking at it from a more strategic perspective. And the value creators are also monitoring and measuring the marketing objectives as they connect to business outcomes. So many times when we, again, what we see and when we work with our customers, and we have a number of case studies, feel free to take a look at some of those, about really getting this connection between the marketing activities, a marketing objective, and a business outcome. When we see a lot of plans, those things are there in a plan, but the relationship between those things is very unclear, oftentimes very ambiguous. And also there's no real specific quantifiable performance targets that show how they lead to each other, how activities and programs lead to the objectives that lead to the outcomes. So again, that alignment and that accountability, the A's are much better at. And then, of course, they're much more able, as a result of the things they're doing around the metrics they're choosing and the way that they're organizing and aligning and prioritizing, they're able to really communicate to the C-suite marketing's contribution to the business. And the dashboard is a key vehicle for them being able to do that. So I want to make some suggestions. You maybe at this point you can say, I have a general idea of which one of these most reflects our organization. We have found that there can be mixes of these kinds of personas inside very large companies. We have found even inside different business units or divisions, even inside different marketing organizations, there may even be pockets of A's and pockets of campaign producers. Obviously the goal is to get the entire marketing organization to all be value creators. And if you sense you've got some campaign producers, here's some things that they can do. If you think you're in an organization that's predominantly a campaign producer persona, what can you do? So first of all, you got to fully commit, because a lot of times, the campaign producers are so busy. That old saying, I'm so busy chopping wood, I don't have time to sharpen my axe. Campaign producers are all about that. They are really nose to the grindstone. They are exceptional producers. So first you've got to believe it can be done. And even if your management team isn't holding you accountable, you need to do it. Because oftentimes the management team really does see you as a service station. They pull in and they want the gas tank filled up. So you have to be thinking differently and show them it can be something different. If you don't have a marketing ops function, and we find most of the time campaign producers, if they have a marketing ops function, it's really a very limited scope. And, you know, it might be campaign automation, or it might just be the budgeting and expense tracking or something like that. So making it be a more expansive, broader role. Build your business acumen, be seen as business people. And then probably in order to make the headway on your journey, especially in any kind of significant way, you're probably going to have to tap some experts outside to really help you do the heavy lifting. You may not have the talent. We find this group doesn't typically have the data and analytical muscle just yet, so they need some help. They just, you know, they need help on the business acumen front. Okay, let's talk about if you think you're a sales enabler. And there's lots and lots of these. Remember, we saw 40% of the marketers kind of fall into this camp, right? So this is about thinking beyond the pipeline, thinking beyond leads, thinking beyond marketing qualified leads, sales accepted leads, sales qualified leads, and all that language. So really what you want to be thinking of yourself and how can we position marketing as a strategic player rather than just a part of the sales organization, or how do you position yourself so that you're not just, that the sales organization is not just your customer. Probably need to kind of build some internal demand for marketing data. We have found that less than 10% of the C-suite uses marketing data to make any business decisions. That's really true here because the data, it really is very myopic. So you want to kind of build and get the right kind of data to be able to make more strategic customer, market, product kinds of decisions. Probably you have a marketing ops function, but it might be time to establish a marketing leadership council. And then lastly, it's time to accelerate your skills and do some additional professional development. So this is an opportunity to bring external resources in, not so much for the heavy lifting, but for the professional development and help you get that your internal team set up and continue to hone the skills. Okay, so now value creators, and we have some of those folks. I'm sure some of you on this call will see yourself there. We know about a quarter of the marketers fall into this camp. This is about optimizing. So you have to be thinking about real time, doing real modeling, doing predictive capability. And here's a thought. I know we always talk about revenue, but we already have a chief revenue officer inside the company in sales. So this whole notion of being a revenue-driven marketer or whatever that is, of course we are. That's our whole purpose. If you know Phil Collar, our purpose of marketing is to find, keep, and grow profitable customers in order to generate revenue for the company. This is not new. But here's the opportunity we have, and that is for the CMO and the marketing organization to be positioned as the chief value officer. That's an opportunity and a role we can step in that gives us sort of a real seat at the table. Get focused on real-time information. Start thinking about how you can use your metrics, your dashboards to facilitate rapid decision-making and execution, and then tap your outside experts, mostly from our advisory services and coaching. You know, even the best athletes in the world, whether it's Tiger Woods, Michael Phelps, it doesn't really matter who they are. They all have coaches. They all know they need coaches, and they all know they need practice, and they use experts to help them do that. So, and specialists to help them do that. So those would be the things, depending on what camp you're in. Hopefully, you got something very practical that for each of you that you can go back and do. So with that, I'd really like to turn it back to James to talk about how you can invest for better performance and results.
Great, thanks, Laura. That was some really great statistics that you put together and a really good story. And I think all of us as marketers can see often where we fit in there. Maybe some of us are early stage, some of us are really through that evolution, and some of us are really pushing the limits of what the technology and the strategy we want to put in place for our company is all about. One of the things we get to do at Allocadia is work a lot of customers who are moving from the laggers to the campaign producers all the way up to the value creators. So some of our customers are the ones really pushing the limits in terms of understanding and driving marketing performance. And so one of the things that we see in terms of the concept of a modern marketer that really understands the difference between creating great campaigns and driving business outcomes. They're often different skills. And I was at a conference about 2 weeks ago called the MarTech Conference. Scott Brinker put it together. Definitely a noted blogger and influencer in our space. And one of the themes of that conference was this concept of a unicorn. So the idea of so much about marketing has been about creating great events, trade shows, websites, collateral, stories, personas, leads, and metrics, etc. that drive relationships with customers. But the modern marketer also has to be technically savvy. They have to understand how they can make all of that work, how they can actually produce results, how they can produce dashboards that align to the business, how they can look at the data, deep data understanding in order to look for trends and analytics that are not just about leads, but actually about forecasting revenue. So the concept of the event was about a room full of unicorns, and I love this picture because it just shows the different types of people that have to come together to make this happen. And we all know that marketing technology, the landscape is riddled with different types of technologies, and so we're sure not making it easy for the modern marketer to pick and choose what pieces that they need. So this is from the chief architect again. So thanks to Scott Brinker for putting all this work together to try and put some sense to how we want to invest in a marketing technology. But we really think there's a much simpler way to look at this. If you're taking Laura's concepts around business value outcomes, understanding how to measure success, if you think about the modern marketing platform, there's really three areas that we challenge our customers to invest in. And a lot of us have heard so much about being customer obsessed and revenue driven, very much what Laura said. So those are the two sides of the equation. In order to do that, we obviously have to apply technology specifically aligned to the customer. How do we reach them where they are? What do they need to hear from us? What's the message delivered through web or social or television or print or radio, whatever. Mobile is certainly a key technology today, making sure that people can interact with us and our story can be told in very much a one-to-one personalized way. So as marketers, what we've done is put huge amounts of technologies that allow us to run those programs. So email marketing, marketing automation systems, social media, digital asset management, traditional what we would call marketing resource management would fit in here, and things like project management to understand all the different moving parts that need to be put in place so that we can have a consistent story put to the customer. Well, what most companies don't do, what they do is they forget about the last bit of it, the last mile, which is that performance layer. And so this is where the technologies that marketers use to plan their marketing activities, look to do their budgets, measure performance, understand their investments they're making across all their different activities, and ultimately what the returns of the business outcomes are. So thinking beyond a campaign execution, but more around planning and scheduling your programs. How much budget do I have? What's left? What's my forecast for not just leads, but what's my forecast for revenue based on historical performance, current performance, and future performance? There's a myth and reality of return on marketing investment that I want to talk about a bit more in a second, of how to look at return on investment, but really thinking about it not just as a individual campaign, but really a collection of campaigns that align to corporate objectives, very much what Laura talked about. So let's, we put this big, huge map of complex technologies, but we break it down to these three. I think it gives us a better sense of the layers we need to put in place in order for us to move from the A's, which is very much the campaign producers, through to the B's, where we're starting to track some analytics, to the A's, which are really driving performance and business outcomes. And so we see this stack being put together in many of our customers to help them drive it. So the top performing teams can answer questions around performance. So, the basics that are still very difficult in many organizations, because people are putting huge spreadsheets together. They're trying to collect data from lots of different systems to answer a really basic question, and it's one that we see with many of our customers really struggle with, is how much are we spending on this campaign for this region, for this product line, and are we on track to spend this quarter? Are we going to spend too much, too little? Do we need to go ask for more budget? But ultimately, those are kind of basic questions, but thinking about the concept of creating value, what are the corporate objectives of the business? Do you know them? Do you know how much money is being spent to support each of those different corporate objectives? How much are you spending to drive each new product introduction or open up a new region? Whatever your corporate objectives are, you want to make sure that you're be able to track and spend and understand the return that you're really driving value for those initiatives, both from the investment side, but also the results side. So we see the top performing teams, and many of the top performing teams we work with are the ones that can give visibility into marketing success and those performance metrics. So what does it look like? Laura talked a lot about the concept of a multi-level dashboard. And if you think about how you might want to look at your marketing performance, this is just a simple view of your investment plan that you plan to spend for the year, your investment actuals, and how much I have left to spend. So if you think about it, where does this data come from? Well, the plan comes from your marketing plan that you've entered into a system. The actuals come from your finance system. So whether that could be a spreadsheet, but it could be your ERP or finance system, whatever you're using for financials can be pulled into this. Your purchase orders, your actuals, so that you can look at, what is my plan by region? What's my actual? What's my investment plan by product, by corporate objective, by campaign type? So you want to be able to look about tracking marketing's progress against your strategic plan, not just here's my tactical budget. If we look another level deeper, it's great to show investments, but really what marketers, as Laura was talking about, is you want to be able to show what's your revenue plan and your revenue one, how much you need to generate, and your return on marketing investment. So if you think about this, the data for here comes from not just your finance system, but your CRM system. So in a business-to-business world, it would be something like a Salesforce.com or an Oracle CRM. In a B2C world, it could be your SAP system that's tracking your revenue data. Could be from a number of different ways that you're using to track your revenue. And so this allows you to think about, how much am I spending on each of those? What's my results plan and revenue? Where am I doing well? Where am I not? And where am I spending money across marketing objective? So again, another way to look at how share marketing's value is contributing to the business, not just how many leads are we generating, having that more strategic conversation. The best marketers go beyond that, though. They go beyond producing results of what's happening today. They look at what's going on in the future. So if you think about the idea that marketers can be more strategic by understanding what the plan and what the forecast is based on their current lead conversion ratios, based on making sure those are always up to date, and being able to look at where gaps are in your revenue forecast and plan. That could be a planning issue, but there could be real issues that surface through some highlighting of data that just isn't working for people. So in this example, the ROI forecast by team, I think there's clearly a problem in South America, but it's probably a data problem. Let's go fix that data problem, and then let's look for outliers of who's doing well and who's doing not. And so that visibility into understanding what your forecast is by team, getting a really accurate view, so that it's not just the sales team talking about their forecast. It's saying, if marketing continues to drive with these events at this time, we'll drive this much revenue. And so that's really what we see the best-in-class organizations do, and many of the companies we're working with, to move them beyond planning and budgeting to really about driving marketing performance and predictive analytics. So if we think about then the key takeaways, and I want to make sure we open it up and have some time for questions, so we're kind of right on time. We want to be able to give you back some time. The key takeaways that we talked about, and Laura can jump in here, but I'll just introduce them, and Laura, help me out to summarize from your perspective. But if you think about the different types of your people or your organization, make sure you do a good assessment of who they are, understand what they do, and understand what it takes to build that high-performing team of A players. How do you move them from campaign producers to sales enablements to value creators? How do you give them the business acumen, the confidence, the technology, the tools, the processes in order for them to move up that chain? Really, because of what Laura talked about, the benefit to your organization can be measured in a huge way. And then understanding where to invest your marketing dollars. Is your big challenge that you have a technology issue? Do you have the right people on your team? Or is this really a strategy alignment? I found one of Laura's reports really interesting about how marketing and finance don't typically talk. Well, finance has done a lot of work on strategic planning from their budget perspective. They're trying to understand how marketing is supporting the corporate objectives. So really encourage people to look beyond the marketing organization to build the next generation of marketers. So Laura, do you want to jump in and comment on anything else there?
I think you said it all really well, and I think you also brought up a really good point, James, and that is sometimes there are really excellent resources inside the organization that marketing can tap. Like, for example, you brought up the finance folks, but also the quality folks. Again, when you want to talk about process and data and use of analytics, the quality folks can be very good there, and that can be another resource for marketers who may not have that available to them internally.
Great. So I want to make sure we have time for questions here. So feel free to jump in, use the question panel on the GoToWebinar. Laura had a couple questions come in through email before this, and I encourage people to tweet any other questions that they may have. Just getting organized and let's see if we have any other questions here. One of the questions was about I talked a little bit about technologies, but when you work with your organizations, at what stage would you be investing in technologies? Is this, do we need to understand the strategy of the company first? Or do I need to understand how I'm aligning with the organization, or is there some simple technologies that I might put into place here? How do you advise your clients, Laura, to look at this problem?
That's a great question, whoever asked it. It's like a chicken and egg. Do we have the technology first so that we can do some of the stuff that we want to do, or do we do some things before we try and go and make those big investments? And I'd like to say that because we have worked with companies of all sizes all over the world, we've seen a variety of things, but here's what happens. You do need to have a technology roadmap. So instead of just saying, what should we go buy, really understand what it is you're going to want to be able to achieve. That means you need to know where you are today, what exists in your organization, in your company today from a technology perspective, and then build a technology roadmap. We have a white paper on that in case anyone's interested that you might find helpful. So that you're not just bringing in things that then won't work and play together or really are not part of what you're trying to achieve in your journey. But it is really important to get the alignment first and understand the priorities of the organization, what you're going to be as a marketing organization expected, what needles you're going to be expected to move, how they're going to know that you've moved them, and how you're going to measure that. And that will give you some insight into the kinds of things you're going to need to be able to do and what kinds of technology you might need to be able to achieve that. So I think that's really important. Great question. And the first advice I'd make is, rather than thinking about technology in individual components, to try to build out that roadmap.
Great. Thanks, Laura. One other thing that I saw in your webinar that was interesting was the recommendation to build a marketing ops function. I'm curious about how often you see that not being in place, and what are the catalysts for you to actually introduce that marketing operations function in the companies that you work with?
Another really good question. So we are seeing that marketing ops is, as a title, as a function, is becoming much more pervasive in all size companies, in all kinds of industries. But what they do can be vastly different. So it's really about scope or charter of the function. So in the smaller organizations, marketing ops might just be about planning and budgeting. Some of the larger organizations that are all, the sales enablers might have a marketing ops that's really devoted predominantly to marketing, technology and marketing automation, campaign management, and some of the data and reporting around that. But the value creators, their marketing ops function is really, think of them more like the chief of staff of marketing. So it's very broad. It includes everything from the budgeting and the planning and the reporting and the technology and the processes, even talent. I mean, it's very, very broad. And so I would suggest, again, think about what would help move your journey forward. What are the things that you need to do? And again, back to auditing and assessment work, the marketing ops function usually owns that. That might be a great place to start. It's like, where are we as an organization, and what would be the next thing that would help us take that next step in our journey?
Yeah, it's great overview, Laura. I think it's something that my CMO of our company invests pretty heavily in is we moved from building a ton of campaigns when I started a year ago to really trying to be that organization with a strong marketing ops function that can really help drive and be the underpinnings of the business so that you can allow other people to be those value creators and be more strategic. So it brings another really good question about any recommended training for my people to become value creators. I think people are seeing that clearly I need to get there, but how do I train them? What's the skills and what are the any resources available to train them to become those value creators?
Oh, wow.
I know,
Okay, we need a whole webinar on that
I
one.
know it is
But
a great topic, right? But
it's a great topic. Whoever asked that question, that is a great topic, and we need a whole webinar on that. So, the, again, once you know where your gaps are, you can decide, is it analytics and modeling that I need my team, I need to build skills around? Is it around alignment and planning and building more aligned um, plans? I mean, I'm amazed at how many marketing organizations really need to understand how to do a better job of alignment, planning alignment, and strategy. Um, and that in itself could be its own topic. There are some associations out there, you could join. There are programs. I'm sure many of the universities are starting to add more of these kinds of capabilities. If you don't know how to do process workflow type of work, getting that skill. And again, there are people who can help you with that. There are firms like ours, firms like Allocadia and others. So depending on what you see is going to be the bigger gaps in your organization, here's that 80-20 rule, so to speak. Here's the things we can do that will get us 80% of the way there. That's what I would focus on, as opposed to because you'll never be able to do all of it all at once, right? That would be too big an elephant to chew.
yeah, I think this is the one area where it's a continual learning process. Things are changing so fast out there. I even think there's some basic books that gives people the ability to think beyond their scope. So there's classic books are like Good to Great, but also things like we had Playing to Win, which was a good book that really helped to look at the strategy of some of the most innovative companies in the world and how they drove strategy. And so the outcome of that would say, okay, well, instead of it just challenges you to think differently about what the company actually cares about. And so those are some simple things to do, but also I think that it's a continual process, and I think getting people comfortable with technology is a piece of that, but certainly not the main driver for it. So yeah, I know Laura, you do a lot of work with companies on this topic as well, and we're not here to sell our services today, but I think there's definitely some stuff that you've done and we've done with our companies to help them move up that scale as well. So I think we have time for one final question here, and it's just pulling it up here. So I think a lot of companies are just starting to invest in technology. I think you give the point about alignment, but if you had a choice between recommending a new marketing automation system or the technology to help you understand your business value drivers and outcomes, can you do one without the other? Is there a path that you would recommend people take to look at? If I would assume this is a fairly new organization, how would they? Where would you put the investment first? The outcome side of it, or actually automating the generation of marketing activities?
Well, again, it would kind of depend to me, James, what kind of company it is, how well do they know their market,
Right.
what segments they're pursuing, have they done customer buying journey work, have they done persona development work, have they done segmentation modeling work? Because a campaign automation system without those things you might not really get as much of the horsepower out of it
Mm-hmm.
that you might want if you haven't done that kind of work already. And so before, a lot of people think that by putting in technology, it will do those kinds of things. But if you don't have those things done already, if you don't know what the buying journey is, if you haven't defined those stages, understand the channels and the touch points and the content that's going to move people through that journey, then having a marketing automation system is probably not the best way to start until you have those things answered. if you don't know what the business outcomes are going to be and you don't have clarity about how marketing is going to measure and impact those things, and you haven't really thought through about what your metrics and the data elements are going to be, then an NPM system probably doesn't quite make sense till you've answered those kinds of questions, so you know what you really need. So, depending on where you are in your company, if you're really an early stage company, you're just getting started, you may want to be thinking, do we have these fundamental things before we go make technology investments? And there are not that obvious, or is there, and can we have a stepping stone approach to the technology so we have something in the interim that we can use until we get more sophisticated? If you're really a sophisticated entity already, then that might be a different set of questions. I don't know if I've really answered that as straightforward as they might have liked. You may have something you could add to that.
Yeah, I think it's of course it's a classic answer about it depends, but I think it really does understand what market you're in. We've worked with customers who've clearly chosen that they're surviving what they have today without a lot of automation, but they're really seeing their need to understand what they're spending on and what their investments are as being a top priority, and then aligning those to the business outcomes was more important than a marketing automation system. But that was more in a business to consumer type of environment versus B2B, which are really, most people have some sort of marketing automation system in place, and they can get some for pretty low cost. So it all depends on where you want to invest. But I think the point that I tried to make in my slide was there's three pillars. One, you've got to focus on the customer. Two, you've got to put the programs in place to address the customer. But don't forget about the performance outcomes at the outside. It's often forgotten. People don't have time. I think they don't have time for it. But I think that the reason we did this webinar was we really believe you need all three, and that you really need to be thinking about driving performance and understanding the business outcomes right from the very beginning, and not waiting to be an afterthought. So, so with that, I think we'll wrap it up. Hopefully, people got a lot out of this webinar today. We will share the recording. So you can share it with your peers. Laura's available to talk about this going forward. She's got a great little business good sized business that she's running. And some really good customers that she works with, and you can reach out to her directly. If you want to talk about marketing performance management technology and software, you can reach out to me through the Twitter, jthomas_44, or send me an email at james.thomas@allocadia.com, or go on our website, check out our quick demos, and connect with us. We'd love to engage further with you. And so with that, I think we'll wrap it up. Thanks very much, Laura, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, everyone. It was a pleasure, and I look forward to hearing from everyone. Bye now.
Great, thank you.